The actual anatomy and physiology of muscle on a microscopic level. So we've covered bone in detail, and then we're going to cover muscle in detail, and then from that point on we're just going to go through systematically areas of the body and talk about all the bones and muscles of that area. In terms of joints, we'll start with the shoulder girdle, work our way down. Today we're going to talk about the muscles of the spine, and there's a we'll get to it later, probably after the break. It was one of the muscles I left out in the notes, so I made an extra sheet to put in when we get to that point. And so we're going to be on page 5, which is 38, which is like section 5. Starting with muscle physiology. So there's 3 different types of muscle. Mostly in this class we're going to be talking about skeletal muscle, but first we're just going to overview the different types of muscle, talk about each one a little bit. So there's going to be skeletal muscle, which is the majority of the muscles that moves your bones. Those are voluntary muscles. Then you have cardiac muscle, which is exclusively found in the heart. And then you have smooth muscle, and that's going to be in hollow organs like your digestive tract, your stomach, things like that. And then they're going to have unique characteristics as far as structure, function, and means of activation. Now when we're talking about skeletal and smooth muscle, those are going to be longer types of fibers. And they're elongated and they're called muscle fibers. And then there's 2 proteins that are in there that do the actual contracting, like when they're talking about in the video where the muscle proteins are ratcheting against each other. That's going to be the actin and myosin. And so then when we're talking about terminology, we're going to start using the word sarco. That's going to be referring to when we're talking about muscle tissue. So sarcolemma is going to be the muscle membrane. And then sarcoplasm, instead of saying cytoplasm, when we're talking about muscle cell, then we're specifically going to call it sarcoplasm. And then different prefixes that will refer to muscle, like myo and MYS and sarco, like myopathy, sarcolemma. All types of things refer to muscle. So now we'll get into the basic skeletal muscle type, and that's what attaches and covers the bony skeleton. And then these are going to be stripes called striations. So when you're looking at muscle, you're going to see the striations in the muscle. And it's also called muscle grain. And then these are voluntary muscles. So these are muscles that are under your own voluntary control, whereas cardiac and smooth muscle are not. And it's going to contract rapidly but can tire easily. And this skeletal muscle is what's responsible for your body mobility. And it can be adaptable, and it can exert a range of different forces. Obviously, you saw in the video when that person had to push that rock off of there, you're talking about just showing brute strength. And then other muscles are going to be more fine control muscles, like finger manipulation, the movements of the eye, things like that. And then now we'll talk about cardiac muscle tissue, and obviously for the name, you're only going to find that in the heart. And it's striated muscle, but it's not voluntary. I mean, maybe if you're some type of advanced yogi person that you can consciously speed up and slow down your heart, but not normally. And there's a pacemaker in the heart keeps it beating at a regular, steady basis. And then it is subject to control, but it's not voluntary control. So there's different neurologic or hormonal inputs that can increase or decrease the heartbeat. And then we'll talk about smooth muscle cells, and that's found in the walls of hollow organs like the stomach, urinary bladder, respiratory passages, things like that. When your bronchioles get constricted, those are smooth muscles that are doing that. And there's no striations in the smooth muscle. So then the functions of muscle are going to be locomotion, and then also to maintain posture. I think this part's not in the notes, so you can write this in. The basic functions of the muscle, of skeletal muscles, to maintain posture, to stabilize joints, and then also it can create heat. You know, if you're ever feeling really cold and you start shivering, those are your muscles that are working to try to generate heat. And then cardiac muscle is what pumps your blood throughout the body, maintains your blood pressure. And then also smooth muscle helps maintain blood pressure because it affects the arteries and veins. And then also in your digestive system, it's going to move food that's passing through the digestive tract. Right? So just to review, the skeletal muscles is the main thing that's going to move your body voluntarily. So locomotion, and it helps to maintain your posture and stabilizes the joints of the body. And then it can also generate heat. And when I got abbreviated there, CM for cardiac muscle and SM for smooth muscle. So all the muscles of the body can generate heat, but it's mostly going to be the skeletal muscles that are going to do that. And the smooth muscle is going to help to maintain cardiac is going to help to move the blood through the body. Smooth muscle is going to help maintain blood pressure by contracting the arteries and veins, and then also moves food through the digestive tract. So each muscle is going to have its own blood supply and different fibers and nerves that are going to go to it. And each muscle is going to have skeletal muscle fibers, or muscle cells, or muscle fibers. And then they're elongated with there's more than one nucleus for each of the cells in the skeletal muscle fibers. Well, actually, that last slide was in the notes, just out of order, sorry. So each muscle cell is composed of fibers, and there's striation that's surrounded by endomysium. Okay? And then each muscle fiber is called the fasciculus. And then those fascicles are surrounded by perimysium. We'll show some pictures of that in a little bit. So then when you have one whole muscle, that's composed of a collection of fascicles bound together and then covered externally by the epimysium. And the epimysium also continues to be part of the attachment to the bone. So here's the breakdown of the muscle. So you have the muscle as a whole unit here, and then as the muscle fibers, and then you break down those fibers, and then you get into this microscopic structure here, where you have the actual actin and myosin. So then talk about the individual sheets of the muscle. So epi, meaning it going around the whole thing. So the whole muscle itself is surrounded by what's called the epimysium. And then on the smallest level, you have each muscle fiber that is surrounded by the endomysium. Okay? And then those muscle fibers are grouped together form a fascicle, and that fascicle is surrounded by a perimysium. So endo is on the smallest level of each individual muscle fiber. Epi is around the whole muscle as a whole unit. And then the fascicles, which are bundles of muscle fibers, those are surrounded by the perimysium.